Hey, what's going on everybody? Commander Crane here, and we are back with another Pioneer video. And today, we're going to be talking about the best Pioneer cards that are in the new set Aetherdrift. So this is going to be my list featuring 10 cards that I think are going to have the biggest impact in Pioneer. So it doesn't necessarily mean that these cards are going to slot right into a top tier deck. It's more of just that decks that are pretty solid but maybe missing some pieces are getting some huge upgrades. And in some cases, I think some of these cards are going to make just decks that really didn't exist like into a real deck. So before we hop into the list here, the one thing I have to mention is we are currently on our road to 1,000 subscribers. And if you want to be part of the huge giveaway that's going to be happening once we get there, you're definitely going to want to be subscribed to the channel for giveaway updates. So you're going to want to subscribe so that way you don't miss it. But before we really hop into the list here, I have to do one honorable mention just because I really never like putting these cards on the actual list just because it makes sense that they're going to have a lot of impact, and that is finishing out the Verge cycle of lands. I really do like the Verge cycle, being able to come into play untapped, and then all you just need is one of the basic lands of the color that it produces for it to be able to, well, tap for the other color. I think these lands are just really, really good. Like, I don't know, if it was on the list, it probably almost would be like number one by default, but I really do like the Verge cycle, but I didn't want to put it on the main list just because it kind of feels like untrue to the spirit of, this video if I just go ahead and put lands on here. So I have those as my honorable mention. So, all right, let's go and hop into the list here. So, number 10, I have Repurposing Bay. I think this card is really, really strong. It kind of is just like it reminds me of Birthing Pod a little bit because it's equal to +1. So it's kind of, yeah, it's basically just like an artifact Birthing Pod. I think this card is good. The reason I don't have it higher is because I don't know what kind of deck is going to play this card. There's potentially, actually, it might play the next card that's featured on the list here, but I'm not entirely sure. Maybe there's like a, like a artifact control or artifact mid-range deck that kind of comes out of this. For instance, like maybe play this with Whir of Invention, having like multiple ways to tutor out specific artifacts. I don't know. It could be decent, Obviously, we don't have anything like, what is that lock deck that was from Modern a handful of years ago? The prison deck, Lantern Control. Yeah, there's no like lanterns, so it's not like we have anything like that. But I don't know. It's more of a speculation. I think this card is good, and that's why I have it at number 10. All right, number 9. I feel like this might be the most controversial card on the list, and it's Radiant Lotus. To be honest with you, with Radiant Lotus, I don't know how good this card is. I really don't. I mean, it's a 6-mana artifact, but then obviously sacrifice one or more artifacts, choose a color. Target player adds 3 mana of the chosen color for each artifact sacrificed this way. Like, this card is obviously, like on paper, this can make a ton of mana, but at least for Pioneer, what it's actually good in, I don't know. So I'm not someone that can just like brew all these combo decks or anything like that and instantly think of something it's good in. But I don't know. We do have Scrap Trawler in the format, which is obviously really nice. Whenever Scrap Trawler or another artifact you control is put in a graveyard, you obviously can return one to your hand. Maybe there's some combo potential with that. I'm not entirely sure, but I put Radiant Lotus number 9 on the list because I think the card's really strong. We'll just kind of see what happens with it moving forward. All right, number 8, and I feel like this is another controversial card in the sense of what it is. It's Thundering Broodwagon. So simply put, I think it's going to be good in Greasefang. I mean, half the time with Greasefang, they either put Parhelion into play, or it feels like they do nothing at all. Like, obviously, like, I'm going to put this Asika's Chariot in. But really, Chariots, it feels like it's just in the deck because there's really nothing better going on. Like, obviously, Asika's Chariot is a solid card in its own right, but it basically feels like if they don't have Parhelion, I feel like I'm going to win this game. And I feel like with Thundering Broodwagon, I feel like that less. I know that there's that big Bane Slayery Angel one, but it really is just like a 7/7 flying first strike and lifelink or something like that. Whereas this card is a little easier to cast, and then it just has really nice ability. Destroy a non-land permanent an opponent controls with mana value 4 or less. It's just really good. Oh, and it has cycling. So realistically, if you have a weird hand, you can just go cycle the Thundering Broodwagon on 2, turn 3 Greasefang, bring it back, destroy something, attack. I don't know. Oh, and then it goes to your hand. Guess what you can do? You can just cycle it again if you really want to, and then just bring it back again. I don't know. I think this card's going to be pretty good in Greasefang, and that's why I have it number 8 on the list. All right, number 7, I have Death Shadow, aka The Last Ride, a 13/13 for 1 mana. But it gets -X/-X, where X is your life total. So yeah, it's basically just the Death Shadow with some nice extra abilities there. It being an artifact can be a little bit awkward because now it dies to cards like Upbraid, for instance, or Besiege You. But I think this card's pretty cool, and I think that there's a lot of opportunity for it to open up a new style of black midrange potentially in Pioneer. Obviously, in Modern for quite some time, there was a lot of Jund and Grixis Death Shadow, which is kind of the premier mid-range deck for quite some time. And, you know, maybe that's what it potentially leans into. Obviously, we have the Shocklands, we have Painlands, we have Thoughtseize. We got some other different cards that can be really, really good with this. I also wanted to feature Caustic Bronco with it, just because Caustic Bronco, I mean, you know, it's obviously 2 power, it's a good mid-range card. Potentially, if you don't saddle it, you can just lose life equal to that card's mana value, so which it can help the Last Ride a little bit. I don't know, I think it could be pretty solid with the Last Ride overall, and I do like this card moving forward, and that's why I've got it number 7 on the list. Okay, number 6, and I feel like this is a card that not a lot of people are going to expect to be on this list, but I think it's really good. It's Greasewrench Goblin. Simply put, it's a 2-1 for 1 Goblin, which never happens, and it has a really, really nice exhaust ability on there. Just being a 2-power Goblin is fantastic, because Goblins never get 2-power Goblins for 1 mana, but if they do, it either has to, you know, do a little bit of extra work to be 2-power, or it has just some downside, like it can't block, or it's got to return at the end of hand or something like that. We don't just get 2-1 for 1 Goblins. It just doesn't happen, and obviously the exhaust ability is fantastic. If you're just like, have extra mana laying around, maybe draw a few too many lands, you can do that. It's also really, really good with the Rakdos Goblins list that uses Call of the Death Dweller, trying to bring back Goblin Chain Whirler. It's good in both of those decks. So overall, I think Greasewrench Goblin is going to be really, really good in Pioneer. Also nice for budget decks, just because a lot of those good 1-drop red goblins can sometimes be rares. And I don't know, I think this card is just really, really good. And that's why I've got it number 6 on the list. All right, so now we're in top 5 territory here. So number 5, and I'm just letting you know ahead of time, this is going to be biased, but you have to hear me out. I have Regal Imperiosaur at number 5. I think this is the card that's really going to help the Gruul Dinosaurs aggro list become much better. 3-drop slot has always been a huge weakness for the deck, and Regal Imperiosaur helps greatly with this. Obviously, best friends with Marauding Raptor, just because you can pay green for a 5/4 that also buffs my other dinosaurs. Like, that's just absolutely fantastic. But it's also good because it trades with Shieldred, which is one of the better creatures in the metagame right now, and it also helps our really good 4-power creatures like Rampaging Raptor and Ripjaw Raptor be able to trade with Shieldred because it makes them 5-power. So overall, I think Regal Imperiosaur is exactly what dinosaurs needed to kind of, you know, catch up a little bit with all these nice mid-range cards that are everywhere in the format. So that's why I have Regal Imperiosaur at number 5. All right, number 4, I have Demonic Junker. So what's really funny is about a week ago, I uploaded a video on the channel here, which you haven't checked this video out, you definitely should, where I talked about 10 decks that are really, really close to being good in Pioneer for multiple different reasons. Maybe being like one reprint away or one hypothetical new card. But spoiler alert, one of the top cards or top decks I picked on there was Simulacrum Synthesizer. Is so close to being good. There just isn't any affinity for artifact cards in the format for Simulacrum Synthesizer to become really, really strong. And then all of a sudden, here comes Demonic Junker, which is arguably like the perfect deck for Simulacrum Synthesizer. So I'm really happy that they actually printed this card because it works extremely well with that card. It just comes in for very little mana. Obviously, there's 2 different artifact lands that you can currently play in Pioneer. So this can come down really, really quick, destroy something, or destroy something your own, get 2 counters on it. It's just a 4/3. I think this card is awesome, and that's why I've got it number 4 on the list, just because of its potential with Simulacrum Synthesizer. All right, number 3. I have the only reprint on this entire list. Not that there's a lot of reprints in this set, but I have Bloodghast. Bloodghast is back. It hasn't been in Standard, or has never been in Pioneer. It hasn't been in Standard in, like, I don't know, like 10 years or something like that. It was Zendikar, so actually probably is more like 16, which that's how long it's been since Bloodghast has actually been in Standard. But this card is sweet. I think there's a lot of different, like, cheap, not even reanimator decks, but just like cheap graveyard value decks that could definitely use a card like Bloodghast. 2 decks that really pop out to me is, 1, I think Insidious Roots is going to love this card as another cheap way for a creature to come back into play. I think that's number 1. Number 2, we have almost all of the pieces we need for Dredge in Pioneer to be good. We obviously have Prized Amalgam right here, which Bloodghast, it's such a good combination. We also have a card like Narc Amoeba. There's a really good Silver Smoke Ghoul, which is fantastic. We have a bunch of different cards that can help fill the graveyard in this format, like we have Cathartic Reunion, and then we also have like Grisly Salvage. I don't know. I think Dredge is really close to being good in Pioneer, and I think Bloodghast is definitely going to help that deck at least be a solid F&M level deck, but I wouldn't be surprised if Bloodghast comes along and it's in one of the best decks in the format, and that's why I have it at number 3. Okay, top 2 territory here. So number 2, another card that I don't think a lot of people are really talking about that much, and that card is Marauding Mako. I think this card is absolutely busted, especially with one of the best cards in the format, Fable of the Mirror Breaker. Obviously, 1/1 for 1. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, put that many +1/+1 counters on this creature. So if you discard 2, 3 cards, it gets that many counters. And then it itself has cycling, which is just so strong. I think this card is going to be good in decks that maybe also want to play like Flameblade Adapt, and then you just play like this value self-discard Inti, you know, maybe Ox of Agonis, or even if we go deep like Bedlam Reveler. I don't know. I think this card is going to be really solid in Pioneer. I mean, you could realistically, in Magical Christmas Land, you go turn 1, you play Marauding Mako, and then you go turn 2 like Cathartic Reunion, for instance. Okay, now it's a 3/3. I'm going to draw these 3 cards. Oh, I got this Madness value or something. Or heck, maybe we even discard a Bloodghast, and the next turn we play a land. Boom, it comes back into play. I don't know. I think Marauding Mako is going to be a really sweet card in Pioneer. It might not take off right away. It might take a little bit for the card to really catch on, but I think this card's really good, and that's why I've got it at number 2. Okay, so number 1. This card, I don't know if it's going to have a home in Pioneer right away. There's really only one deck that currently exists that could really take advantage of it, but hear me out with this card. This card is Ketramose, the New Dawn. I think this god is just absolutely incredible. Obviously, you got the good stats there. Menace, lifelink, indestructible, but it can't attack or block unless there's 7 or more cards in exile. It's not a devotion god. It needs cards in exile. Well, obviously, there's a lot of different cards in the format that exile. Tons of different removal spells do that. And then whenever 1 or more cards are put into exile from graveyards and or the battlefield during your turn, you draw a card and lose 1 life. I really love this with Cling to Dust. It's just fantastic. Obviously, being able to escape it is fantastic. We Cling to Dust our opponent's something that's going on, obviously either gaining life or drawing a card. We get another trigger from Ketramose to draw a card and lose more life. I don't know. It's just, I think it seems solid in Esper Control. Imagine just being able to like wrath the board. Obviously, you don't want to use Sunfall because you can have Ketramose in play because it's indestructible. All of a sudden, boom, maybe we have a Rest in Peace in play, or we wrap the board with that, and then all of a sudden Ketramose can start attacking and blocking. Oh, and by the way, we're going to draw a card and lose a life. I don't know. I think Ketramose is going to be really good in Pioneer. Again, similar to Marauding Mako, I think it's going to take a minute for the card to really pop off, but don't be surprised a few months from now if this card starts popping up everywhere in mid-range and control decks, and that's why I have Ketramose at number 1 on the list for the best Pioneer cards in Aetherdrift. And if you disagree with this list, or you think it should be in a different order, or if there's a card I definitely should have included, just let me know in the comment section below and we can definitely talk about that. So that takes us to the end of the video here. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Once again, we're doing a huge giveaway once we get to 1,000 subscribers, and you don't want to miss it. Huge shout out to our channel members, Ralph, Matt, Arcadius, Ray, Gary, Saranoki, and Night Red 3. If you're interested in being a channel member, it's only $1 a month, and you get access to the exclusive Commander Crane Discord, as well as other features here on the channel. So, I'm Commander Crane. Thanks for watching this video, and hope to catch you in the next one.